Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Between the Covers. My name is Bradley Shaw, and tonight I'm talking to Samantha Hampstead, who is the wonderfully new talented author of Isabel and Chloe. Good evening, Samantha. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Oh, very good. And I'm between the covers on my bed.
Good call. So Isabel and Chloe is the first book of a trilogy. Is that not correct?
That is very correct.
Wonderful. So what inspired you to write this book? And please tell us about the book as well.
Okay. What inspired me, first of all, was going into a little bric-a-brac shop in Chapel Street in Paran. I walked in and I made a beeline straight for a cabinet. In the bottom of the cabinet was a little medallion. And I said to the lady, essentially, in summary, I want that medallion. So I got that medallion and I took it to my grandmother. I showed her the medallion and she said to me, I want you to go back to France and tell me how it has changed. And this was whilst she was in hospital that she told me this. And at the time I'd already started writing the book. And my investigations took me back to Sebastian of Portugal, Joanna of Castile, and then I stumbled onto a group of people called the Cathars. Now, very few people know about the Cathars. Now, there was a mass genocide of the Cathars in 1209 in Béziers, and the Pope went in and said, kill them all. God will know his own, and that's in the history books. And 20,000 people, men, women, and children, were murdered indiscriminately in one night. The bishop went out and begged with the Templars and the other Crusaders, asking them, please, can you not kill town? And they said, you surrendered the Cathars and we won't do anything. Now, there are only 222 Cathars in the town of Béziers. The townspeople said, we're not going to give them up. And so what then happened was the bishop and a number of Cathars left, and the remaining members of the town stayed and were slaughtered. And the Cathars were heretics in the Catholic Church's eyes, and it was basically because they saw them as being dualists. And dualism is a very interesting view on how you see religion, so to speak. And then there was a second, to make a long story short, there was a second slaughtering, and I will call it a slaughtering, at Montségur in France in 1244, and that is said to have wiped out the Cathars. But what I'm putting out there is a what if Cathars survived. And when King Sebastian of Portugal went out to Morocco to fight alongside a Muslim, so a Catholic king fighting alongside a Muslim king, which is a big no-no for starters back in the 1500s. What if he was fighting alongside them, had witnessed an assassination attempt on himself, which again I had historical evidence to suggest that actually took place, and he then went and hid and met some Cathar people. They had children, and so our journey begins.
Very good, well done. So as you said earlier, you were looking at, you started the book you found the medallion and did this,
Mm-hmm.
and then you evolved more research.
Yep.
So what was your original premise for this story before all this element of
A glass of wine.
just that? Okay.
Yes, I was I was having a glass of wine with a friend of mine who I actually used to edit her books for her, and I had been looking at the 100-Year War with another mutual friend of ours, and I'd started to more so investigate Joanna of Castile before I moved on to Sebastian of Portugal and so on.
Okay.
And that entire family, the House of Aviz, are a very interesting family because the irony is the Spanish Inquisition was started by the House of Aviz.
Mm-hmm.
And then Joanna of Castile, who was deemed Joanna Mad, for numerous reasons, as soon as she began to question the Catholic Church, they locked her away in a nunnery, deeming her mad. But she refused to give up her royal entitlements, I suppose you could say, or royal powers. And then King Sebastian of Portugal, who had no heirs, he went on, and when he started to question the Catholic Church and went and fought alongside Moors, or Muslims as they're now known today, he mysteriously died in battle.
Right.
So, yeah.
So that was the vein of the story you were going to take originally, but you sort of threw the Cathars in and the girls.
Yeah, the Cathars kind of stumbled into it along the way, and the Cathars are a very, very interesting group of people.
Yeah. So did it take you long to research all of this, like to put all these pieces together and create
It's taken me 9 years.
Yeah, so not long at all. Okay.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. It's yeah. And one of my daughters actually said to me the other day, she goes, "Mum, that's taken pretty much my entire life for you to, get your first book out." I'm like, yeah.
Yes. Yes. That's why she has to treasure it when you're long gone, and So
thank you for reminding me that I may die at some stage. Yeah.
we all will, I hope. God.
We all will. We all will. But
We're in this place forever. Oh my God. I don't know. I think immortality is overrated. Put it in a book and let it be there, and then go off and sleep in peace.
Yes.
So with that in mind, dying and living, does your writing, do you find it when you do it energize you or exhaust you? Like what elements do you find most,
I get excited when I write because as the story progresses, you see the story.
This is the first draft. This is the actual inspirational writing when you just blurt it all out.
Yeah. When you're just like, oh, this is happening, that's happening, da 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 da. But then when you've got to sit it all down and piece it all together, that's when you get tired and your brain starts to do.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you say is your writing kryptonite? Like what's your weakness? And don't say wine.
No. My writing kryptonite's actually my arthritis.
Well, yes.
That's my writing kryptonite. My health is writing kryptonite. Because my epilepsy and my arthritis have played a huge role in how it's taken so long to get it done. Yeah. But I was still determined to get it done. Yeah. And I mean, there's some mornings I wake up and I just don't want to get out of bed because it's too painful to get out of bed. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I'm too tired to do anything.
Did you type it? Is that why the arthritis was difficult? Because you were actually, or did you hand write it, or what were you?
In the beginning, I hand wrote it, and there would be times where I would type it and I would have to wear gloves because my hands were actually so sore. But for me, I think in terms of saying that too, if we want to talk about a kryptonite, the hardest thing for me is actually sitting down at a computer and typing it, because I am more creative when I have a sketchbook or notebook in front of me, because I can then scribble out what I've been saying, and I can see notes on the side of what I've done and everything else. Whereas on a computer, you look at it and say, oh, that's it. You know, you just press the button and it's all gone. And I hate it because that has happened to me before. I have typed everything out and gone back, and I think you and I have had this conversation once before. Thought everything was done.
Yes. But when you write, how many hours do you give yourself for writing a day? Do you do it daily, weekly? What sort of time do you like to try to give yourself to write?
If I could give myself 3 hours a day, I would give myself 3 hours a day. Because for me, that's good. Sometimes I might only get, you know, a couple of hours a week, and that's not from the want of trying. It's having the ability to sort of fit it in with not just my schedule, but my health, my family, everything else. Because when I first started writing Isabel and Chloe, I was actually working full time. And I was a union organiser with the finance sector union. And so I'd work long days. My husband at the time, he worked night shift, so I would stay up for hours during the evening and write away at night. And then when I lost my job, I pretty much put all my energy into writing the book and looking after 2 little girls.
Wow. Yeah, well, there's a full-time job just alone, let alone writing as well. So when you did the research, was it online or was it a library, or did you find
both?
You get France?
You've
been to France yourself?
Have I been to France myself? No, I haven't been to France. I'm hanging out to go. Hopefully when all this COVID stuff is finished, might get the opportunity to go. My family originates from around the French region. The majority of them are from Scotland. But there are people that are from France, and ironically, when I did a DNA test, ancestry DNA, because I do a lot of genealogy as well, they come from Béziers. So obviously we survived the mass slaughtering at Béziers.
Cool. With all this research and all this, the years it took you, you still would have had challenges besides physical and emotional. What would you say was the hardest thing for you to write in this book? What was the hardest challenge of writing? Or what was the hardest? Let's break it down. What was the hardest part of the book to write, without giving away too much information? Don't give away too much to the readers.
Well, you get to know your characters, and your characters, because you're spending, it sounds silly, but because you're spending so much time with your characters, you know your characters intimately. And if one character has to leave the story, be it on a trip, be it due to ill health or something like that, you then have to sit there and write that. And if you're any sort of a human being, you start to feel compassion and emotion about how you feel about this sort of stuff happening. And my current husband, I said to him about one actual character that something occurred to, and I said to my husband, I said, I don't like doing this sort of stuff. I don't like writing about this sort of stuff to this character. I love this character. And he's like, but it's part of the story. How do you expect the story to evolve, go on, all that sort of stuff? I'm like, yeah, but he said it won't work if you don't allow the story to evolve. So
that's the challenge, isn't it? Like falling in love with your characters in a fondness or a care way that you find hurting them becomes a personal choice as well. You have to consciously define how and what, there is benefits to it, the story and the plot and the whole progress, but again, it's a personal thing for the writer. So with that in mind, did you find writing opposite sex characters, male characters, to you harder, or did you understand them enough? Or
I found male characters, believe it or not, easier to write because I grew up as a bit of a tomboy and around a whole lot of boys in the country. So it was quite easy to write about boys. Also, I have 4 stepsons. So, and yeah, they certainly opened my eyes to a few things. But also having worked in the jobs that I have over the years, like I've worked in kitchens as a kitchen hand. I've worked as I said, I was in the union environment. I was a manager throughout ANZ. You interact with so many different people from so many different, what would you say, backgrounds, everything else, socio-economic places, and yeah, it's good to learn about it. And all my cousins, when I was younger, the majority of them were boys as well. So it was pretty easy to write about boys. Girls are harder. I find girls to be
much more complex, emotional.
Girls are complex. Girls can be narky. Girls can be just. I don't like. No, I'm not saying I don't like girls. It's just.
They are complicated.
They are complicated. Girls, women, it doesn't matter when they start out as tiny little things. They're very complex individuals.
But it's interesting. The challenge you would have had with this book is that the two main characters were two different girls. So you had to give them two distinct personalities as much as
Correct.
Two girls. And you did that really well. I thought like Isabel and Chloe were very much dynamic opposites and worked well in the flow, I think, in your story for the characterization. That's why I thought you must have had them really down pat, and maybe the boys were a little bit harder to write because they sort of had a fluid movement between the girls, but yet, you're saying the girls were the hardest part to write. So
the boys I found a lot easier because solely because I'd spent so much time around boys when I was younger. It's like, oh yeah, they go off, they do this, they do that, all this sort of stuff. But see, I've got sisters as well, and I'm the oldest.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't actually I'm not saying I wasn't a nice sister. I was a nice sister, but I was a stupid sister. No, I was really, really stupid. Like, okay, so to give you an example as to how stupid I am now, this is going to go out for all the world to hear. Stupidity.
One-on-one with Samantha.
One-on-one. My youngest sister and I, there's 7 years between us. I had just watched the Alien movie. We were out the back near some sacks of wheat, and I said to my sister, I go, okay, I've got this really cool idea. I said, I want you to put your head down here. I'll grab this bag knife, and I said, and I'll stick it near your head. So I'm lifting this knife as she's lifting her head. It was going so well. It was going really, really, really well. And then I got faster. And then all of a sudden there was this knife sticking out of my sister's head, a blonde. There was no blood. I was really stoked about this.
Good.
I was like, oh, thank God there's no blood. and then I removed the knife, and all this blood just went.
Okay.
I don't think I need to tell you what the repercussions were of that. My mother was not impressed at all.
Really?
But no, my mother wasn't impressed at all. And then I made my other sister sniff pepper at the dining room table, just so I was the horrible one.
Yeah.
And just to see reactions, I would do it to get reaction.
That's really what most kids do. It's generally like just those little boundaries. What is this? What happens?
But that was up until about 14, 15. But as I got older, I sort of became a bit more mature.
Yeah, I did that to my little brother too. I put him in a coma for like 6 hours because I was curious to see how much current would go through a door handle. So I plugged in a battery on the side of a door handle, and he grabbed it on the other side when he opened the door, and he got zapped, and he actually literally went unconscious. It was quite interesting to watch. I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have given it that much
voltage.
No, anyway, moving on. So the book took 9 years to write.
Yes.
Now, and you've explained that well, that's fine. But I'm just curious, like, when you started this campaign, you had several models and transitions in your life as well as the story as you went through it.
Yep.
Did you see it? Did you always see it as being published? Did you see this as your goal? Did you ever think, I mean, over 9 years, you sort of feel like, are you really on that path, on that motivation? Is that your goal directly, or was it just a story you wanted to tell? Right.
No, I wanted it to be published. I actually wanted it to be published a lot earlier than what it has been published, but
hey, I did it best I could, right? You know, I'm sorry. No, it's not you. It's me. It's like there was a whole lot of obviously things that got in the way, and I was procrastinating. It's like, this story has to get out. And the biggest thing for me is that I wanted to get the story of the Cathars out. Yeah.
Very few people, if you walk up to someone and you go, can you tell me who the Cathars were? If I said that to you, until you'd read or had anything to do with my story, maybe you did know who they were. But did you know who the Cathars were?
No, not directly, no.
No. So, and I had somebody contact me and go, I actually went and looked up who the Cathars were solely because of your book.
Yeah.
And what, for me, it was in an indirect way to get the story of the Cathars out, because there is a lot more to the Cathars than I think we're aware. I know that France is trying to basically wipe out the history of the Cathars and everything that happened with Béziers and Montségur, and I also know that Occitania is being slowly wiped out. So all the old history that exists in the lower Languedoc is slowly being wiped away by France.
Yep.
And I don't know why that is, but I want to get that story out to as many people as I can now, be it via a fictitious way, be it, you know, any way I can. And I know that it's working.
Good. No, that's good. Was the book, on all that research and all that premise and all that understanding you were learning, was it a trilogy at the start, or has that evolved through the
It's evolved. It's evolved. It's evolved.
But instead of writing one big chronicle, you thought you'd just take the first part and publish that, and then wait.
Yeah.
You know, so
and then it got bigger. It got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
We've got another 9 years to wait for part 2, or?
No, because I'm being harassed for part 2 already. I have actually started part 2.
Harassing you? My gosh, what?
No, it's not just you, it's other people.
Good.
People are going to me, I can't wait to read the second part. And I'm like, you will have started it.
You've hit the snowball. See, the procrastination is going to pay off now.
Yeah.
So, do you find your family is supportive of this new venture, this new career? Obviously, for 9 years, and knowing this is something that's going to happen.
Yeah. Oh no, my family is really supportive of me. My husband Jason, he's really good. He's awesome. I love it. He's fantastic. Pardon?
He read it, or?
He had no choice but to hear it. I read it out to him. Like, he is actually an avid reader, but he doesn't need to read it, because I think he knows it off by heart every time. Yeah, I discuss it, and he'll go, "Oh, is that the part where da 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 da?" I said, "Yeah, that's it." He goes, "Oh, okay." So yeah.
Well, that's good.
So he knows all about it, and because he's also a military buff himself, and he's also ex-military.
Yep.
I can actually go back to him and say, okay, this is what I'm writing. Does this sound correct for this particular era? Because this is what I've investigated. This is what it says. And I said, is it correct? And he'll either say yay or nay. And I've also got another friend who I met through the union, and he's a big war buff as well. And so bouncing ideas off both of them has been really, really good. Because that I'm not an expert in that field, but when you've got people that have really followed it and are involved in that area, it's great.
So with that in mind, so you've got the support and you've got the, you know, the at the time you make available. What would you say in all that is possibly your most interesting writer's quirk? What's your little piece? Like some writers will have a way they have to sit at a particular window, they have to look a certain way, they have to use pencil, have to drink out of a coffee cup, they have to do certain everything. They can't write.
I've definitely got to have coffee. Definitely got to have coffee. No, my biggest quirk. I need my space. I have to have space.
You can't be like worked in a little box. You have to have.
No, I have to have space, and like sometimes, like I can't do it at the moment because it's driving me nuts. Jason went out and bought me a writing desk, so I have my writing desk here, which has got all my research books and everything on it. But when it's on some days, I'll actually go and I'll take my laptop and a pile of books and paperwork out onto the dining room table.
Yep.
And if the television's going or anything else, I have to put earplugs in, play music full bore, even though it's not like I will be completely concentrating on what I'm doing, but it has to be some sort of background noise, so that I don't have to listen to the human interaction that's coming in my direction.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have to have music on when I write. I like this has to have some sort of other atmosphere around me. So yeah, it's very good. So so what's the future plan? So you've got 2 more books to come.
Yes.
And you've got, is there any other writing elements you're creating?
Somebody said to me, and it wasn't just one person that said it, it was a couple of other people that have said it as well. So we obviously have Isabel and Chloe in our story, but there's obviously several other characters that we meet along the way. So there's Sebastian, Jean-Pierre, and all these other people, and it's been suggested that potentially I write Sebastian's story and what happens to Sebastian as his life progresses, and perhaps even go back and look at Joanna of Castile and rewrite details of her story, because you'll find, and as I've said this in a podcast recently, often you'll see that the indigenous people, they will use stories to tell their history. So there is potentially a way that I can weave the story to encourage people to either investigate history or show them historical facts in little bits and pieces that I've seen them.
Wow, so you've got quite a web of, you could spiral out of that story.
I could, yeah.
Catalogue of books in that issue or in that.
Yeah,
That's good.
It would more be like a European thing. It would be kind of around Knights Templar, Holy Grail, and then we've got the Spanish, Portuguese. I do kind of like a little bit of conspiracy theory stuff as well.
Yeah,
I love conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Play with that as well. Unless, of course, you get a whole bunch of people coming out to hunt you down, then your conspiracy theory may have been right.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, so no, that's good. So awesome. Look forward to that. More books coming. So with with the process, how did you find, like you've sat through 9 years of writing and developing and updating
Yeah.
when you came to the process of publishing, how have you found that experience? How have you found the direct editing, the really digging down, like handing your, I guess, that 9 years, handing that baby over with someone else's input? And
I was terrified before you even finished that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how have you found that? Yeah, what would you say to an aspiring young author looking to get published, and then to help them to, understand what they're writing and how to keep themselves focused and grow as an author?
Don't take anything personally. It's never a personal attack. Be prepared to have something given back to you, but also be true to yourself. And if the editor comes back and says, I've done this, you can go back and go, well, I don't like the way you edited it. I've written it in this manner because blah, 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 blah. So it's always a big thing about communicating. It's not about it all being one-sided. You need to have that open communication. If you don't have open communication, it's pointless. It's an absolutely pointless exercise.
Yes, I agree.
And
as a growth as a writer too, you need to have that input from somebody else, to help you.
Yeah. And like obviously the editor's there to assist with your punctuation, all that sort of stuff. But if you do go back to they're there to help you. What's the best way for me to phrase this? Okay, for instance, I worked with one of Shoreline's editors. She was fantastic. I loved her. She was awesome. And she put a word into the manuscript, and I said, I'm sorry, but a 13-year-old wouldn't use that word. I said, you need to take that out. I said, because a 13-year-old would not use that word. I said, you're using it in the concept that an adult would. Yeah. So change that. And then another thing that happened was, and it had totally skipped my mind, because when you're in the zone, you're just writing away. Sometimes you don't even think, you just keep.
Of course. And
the editor picked up something that I hadn't even picked up. She said, you said something like this back in this chapter, but then you stated, and I'm not going to spoil the story by saying this, but Chloe sees one of her characters being able to read. So he discusses with her that he can read and write and is very fluent in several languages. And then in another part of the book, she's looking out a window and says to herself, I didn't know he could read. And then she came back to me, the editor came back to me and she said, do you realise you actually said that? And I'm like, whoa, I didn't realise that I said that. And it wasn't that I didn't know. So all I needed to do was change one word from know to forgot. Do you know what I mean? So that was just, it was that one word. So and she
give you perspective on your book, because sometimes you're writing in your arcs or different periods of time and you forget some little details that happen. That's
right, you do. And because you write it over such a long period, and you have, when there's several eyes looking at it, it's a lot easier to come in and discuss it. But the big thing is, don't take it personally, but always know it is still your baby. It's you will protect it to its death, because you gave birth to this little thing, and anybody that comes and attacks it or touches it and changes it, you are going to take it personally. But and that's a fair call. But
intentions are there, that they're trying to help you and help the book be better and be you better. Just take it constructively, don't take it personally. But so with that in mind, you went through the process, you survived, You've got the book in print. You've got it published. It's out there now. And just for the viewers that are watching, it was actually released in October. So apologies for the delay. But yes, she's had it out there for a while. She's done a number of podcasts in bookstores and such now. So Sam, so now you are officially a published author with a book in the marketplace. How has the response for you been for some of the readers? Like, you know, so some of the positives and some of the, as you say, being
some have been absolute, some have been fantastic. Like, you get reviews and everything else, and they come back saying, "Oh, I love the book, it did this, did that." And then there's other people that come back that you just want to smack in the head because they go, "Oh, it really didn't ring true to the era, and it just didn't meet my expectations," and all this, and they go from giving it, you have a lot of people that might give it 5 stars or 4 stars, and then all of a sudden you might see a 1 star and you think you're basically attacking it. And you don't even and there was one individual, and this individual attacked, and I mean attacked, the book. She attacked the artwork, and I'm looking at the artwork, and I love the artwork that Shoreline has been able to get done by your artist that does all the covers.
Thank you.
And you know, she attacked the editing, everything, and I'm thinking, you're attacking everything about this book. If it wasn't the book that was for you, why keep reading it? Hey, she bought the book, that's money in my pocket. That's great. I love it. She read it from start to finish.
Her point of view.
Yeah, and she said it was monotonous and droned on. So that was her opinion. Yet I've had a lot of, sorry?
Others have loved it. So
others have loved it. I've had people call me on the telephone and tell me how much they've loved it. You know, complete strangers contact me.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. Like, you've got to take all that with it. I mean, people will always have negatives and positives, and experience. You know, they don't know you. They don't know what you've invested in this, what you've put into it yourself for 10 years. They don't know the suffering, the pain, the ailments you've struggled through to get this book out there, you know, so they don't and never will have a comprehension of that. So in their perspectives, their world, their elements are going to be limited to what they know only as a product they see and understand and get that point of view of their own. So you've got to just accept that. But with the positives as well, people will actually take away from it, as you said, and find more information they want to learn from. Wait for a sequel. You know, and be inspired by you, because what you've done and achieved is surmountable effort for anybody in a first book, let alone a trilogy that's coming. You know, and marked with the input and the efforts that you've created in your life. You know, you've sustained and endured to come out with this as an end, and I think it's a gold medal as far as I'm concerned. You've done a brilliant job. I was proud to publish your first book and see you aspire. You know, so I was
stoked when you took it. I was like, oh my God.
I wouldn't even doubt anything like you do now. You've done a huge, you know, accomplishment. So I'm very proud of you. But Samantha, if I may, we wrap it up there for the evening. And I thank you for your time.
By the way, anybody, this is the book.
Yes, it's available online and everywhere books are sold. Samantha is also around promoting it as well. So we'll look out for her more so. Like us on Facebook, follow her, and enjoy. But again, buy the book. It's available online and in bookstores, as I said. Thank you, Samantha. Looking forward to seeing the next evolution of the series. But thank you for your time. Have a wonderful evening. And talk to you again soon, I hope.
Sounds great.
Now.